I am one of the few people on the entire planet that's able to say they played College Football 25 last week for over 4+ hours. A big thanks to EA Sports for flying me down to Orlando so I can get my hands in the game, talk to the devs, and really just answer all these questions for you guys, but it's time to break everything down. Quick note, I am dropping a ton of videos on College Football 25 leading up to the launch of the game, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already because you do not want to miss out on some of the biggest news pieces that I have for the game. And if you got a question about the game, drop it in the comments down below because if I don't answer it in this video, I have other videos that can make sure I answer your question. And one of my biggest fears about College Football 25 was around the sheer amount of teams that are actually in the game. In Madden, we have 32 teams. In College Football, we have 134 teams. Like, that's a wild amount to make play different and feel unique. And even though the coaches aren't actually going to be in the game, each team is going to play very similar to the real-life counterparts, but that's a tall task. There are 134 different playbooks that are actually in the game, and then there's 10 different styles of playbooks. There's a veer playbook, there's like an air raid playbook, there's different ones that are more of like the generic ones, kind of like what you find in Madden too. And while that's great to have all those playbooks and different things in the game, to me it's the real-time coaching engine that kind of makes all this work. So from the jump, you're going to find that coaches in College Football 25 are a lot more aggressive than what you'd find in Madden. To give you an example, I started a game up as Ollie Gordon, who is the best running back in the game for my money, because I wanted to kind of see what he could do. And I was taking on Florida State in that game, and it was pretty apparent that they were going to be blitzing heavy and have heavy boxes stacked to make sure that Ollie didn't really get going. And as I see that, I'm like, okay, cool, maybe it's a coincidence. I jumped into another game wanting to use Emeka Egbuka from The Ohio State University playing against Oregon. And again, I noticed that Oregon's got coverages on the first 3 to 4 drives that are kind of like geared at shutting him down. Safeties are paying more attention to him. The coverage is a lot more tight on him. They're shading him on certain routes that I was trying to run. Like, the defense was kind of locked in. Once I started to cook with Quinshon Judkins and Jeremiah Smith in the air, it felt like Egbuka was a little bit more open and they had less coverage going to him because they had to shut down the other guys that were already cooking. And I'm not saying it's impossible to cook with one of your top players, but I'm just saying the CPU will pay more attention. If you're somebody that wants to run just the same formations and plays over and over, the defense is going to kind of adjust to that. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it is cool to see the CPU actually make these adjustments because we haven't really seen that in football in a while. Something that's also really cool is the CPU has access to every single one of the same features that we do when we're on the defensive side or offensive side of the ball. You might see the CPU press their corners. They might use shade techniques. Let's say you're on 1st and goal, they might shade one of the guys inside because they're like, you're going to go outside. We're not going to let you come inside here. I saw QB contains. I saw different coverage shells being used. They do a lot of the same things that we do on the defensive side, which again, we haven't seen in a while. I would say that overall the defense felt harder to actually score on, and that's kind of a welcome change because I feel like in Madden we can dominate time and time again. Part of that could be because a lot of us, and even myself, I wasn't used to a lot of the playbooks. I was figuring stuff out, figuring out the gameplay. It's faster, it plays different, right? It's not a Madden clone. We talked about this. Over time, maybe we get more adjusted to it and the defense is a little bit easier to score on, but I will say I like them being more aggressive and harder to score on than just being kind of a rollover, unless you're playing like a small school. There's also something in the game called DIY trick plays or DIY reverse plays, and they're kind of cool, and I can't wait to see people try to defend them. Basically, for these plays, you either hand it off using L1 or LB to your teammate, or you keep the ball and run. There's even a halfback direct snap do-it-yourself reverse play that is going to be disgusting, and like, I don't care who you are, you can be the most manly man in the world. You will giggle like a small child when you take one of these to the house. If you play Madden and you saw that there's certain reverse plays out of either weak or I4 or strong, I can't remember which one, but there are reverse plays in Madden that were frustrating because it felt like the defense never really reacted to it properly to shut it down. I did not find that being the case here. The defense shut me down on a lot of these. I try to mix them in to different plays that I was using, different teams I was using, different players overall. And the defense had their fair share of stopping me, and I also had some big runs out of them too. I didn't get a chance to use the following plays, but EA did confirm to me that there are double passes, reverse flea flickers all in the game, and there's a new glance RPO. And speaking of RPOs, there are a lot of RPOs in the game. I will say that I may have let out like a very loud audible "thank God" when I ran an RPO and the defense shut it down immediately. I think defenders in general do a much better job of sort of block shedding on wide receivers because in Madden 24, man, wide receivers are blocking better than my left tackle sometimes. Guys that weren't involved in the direct sort of run action of an RPO that were sort of deeper in your actual defense were playing up front more some of those pass plays in RPO, so I felt much better about how the defense will respond, especially the CPU side. The best thing though that I saw in College Football 25 is the wear and tear system. I am wildly excited about this, and I will say though, The success of this feature is all about tuning. If they can balance it properly and tune it properly, which I think it needed a little bit of tweaking from where I played it at the event, this will be a game changer if they get it right. It's hard to really capture the nuance of this feature, but basically it's going to change how you play the game entirely. The most simple way to put it is that if you're damaging a player with big hits, constantly getting to the quarterback or hitting a player in general, this happens to all 22 players, they're going to play differently. Like I mentioned, all 22 players are at risk of the wear and tear system. Nobody is safe. For example, let's say you're playing Dynasty or Road to Glory and your QB's chucking the ball 30, 40 times a game because you're just out there trying to make something happen, get some records or whatever. If you are constantly getting hit throughout the course of this game, that's not going to be good for your quarterback because they will not be 100% the following week. Every limb or body part that your character has like a unique set of attributes tied to them. So let's say you're scrambling, you're a QB, and you're throwing the ball to receiver down the field, but a linebacker, a defensive end, somebody hits you and then you take a massive hit as your quarterback. And let's say that massive hit actually targets your arm, and what you're going to find is that you'll notice a decrease in your throw power and your throw accuracy. Like I mentioned earlier, it could be a small one, like a -1, -2. It could be a massive one over the course of a game going up to a -20, which is wild. Let's say you're on defense and the opposing team has a speedy running back and they're always getting to the edge or hitting an inside zone and bursting out, and you're just like, I cannot stop this dude. The best strategy you can have is one, hope that your opponent isn't smart and they keep running them nonstop, but two, try to take out their legs, try to hit certain parts of them. And if you can do that, you can kind of take away maybe their change of direction, maybe their acceleration, and you've now kind of leveled the playing field. So maybe that running back was like a 97 speed, but you hit his legs so much that he's down to like an 89 or an 88, and late in the football game, he's not as impactful anymore. Important though, every part of the body is going to degrade kind of at a different rate. Your toughness rating is going to matter, and it's going to kind of play a critical role in how much the damage is applied on any given hit. The more damage that a particular body part ends up taking throughout the course of a game, the higher chance and severity of that injury. I can already hear like so many of you typing in the comments, oh, that's not realistic. Yes, it is. Oh, I don't like that. You're probably a person that scrambles nonstop and runs the same plays over and over. Good, you got to learn to play football now. I will say though, just calm your horses a little bit. You can actually recover within the game. Subbing out players works wonders. Anytime a player is really not on the field, they can regain health to a degree. So things like timeouts, halftime, subbing them out for a couple of plays. There is sort of organic subbing out for those guys as they get tired or get banged up a little bit. Between weeks, if you're in Dynasty or Road to Glory, those things will help those players recover. Even so, you still have to care about the actual workload you're putting your players through. And I think it's also cool that your bench is going to matter probably more than it ever has for like your skill position players, your wide receivers, your running backs. A lot of those guys are going to need to be deep rather than just being kind of a one-trick pony with your top guy being great and your other guys being so-so. And keep in mind, the worse a body part is damaged, the harder it's going to be for it to actually recover. And like I mentioned, you can recover during a single game, but you're limited in the amount of recovery you can actually have in that game. You're not just going to be at like a 60% damage and then be up to 100 after a quarter. Like, it may not get all the way back up. I do really love though how it impacts the offense and the defense both, but the CPU deals with it too. QBs and offensive linemen kind of feel like the positions that maybe aren't as impacted. You don't really see a quarterback getting subbed out because he's getting dinged up. They kind of fight through it. You can sub out a quarterback, but keep in mind there's a Composure system that we'll talk about in a few. But one of the most gratifying things in this game, in my opinion, is delivering a huge hit to a player. They come back out on the next play and he's not in the game, but you're like, yeah, buddy's on the sideline recovering. The later you get in a game though, especially in important games, the less likely those players are to come out. They will try to tough it out a bit. Toughness rating again mattering a bit there. But some hits, some injuries aren't going to be able to, even in the toughest games, to be able to stay in the game. You might force a player out in a critical moment because you delivered the perfect hit at the right time. They do a good job of communicating it visually in the game to me as well. There's a wear and tear indicator on the reticle of the player that you see on the actual field. You'll see it in your quarterback and running back. Super easy. Wide receivers, when you get into coach vision, is super easy to see. But you can also, speaking of coach vision, L2 or LT, you can pull that up, and then using the right stick, you can kind of look and see where they are. There's also a picture-in-picture system when you're choosing your play calls. You can see it on that screen. The depth chart, you can see it there. In Dynasty on the player card, there's a lot of different ways that they keep that information right in front of your face. And if you're somebody that thought, well, wear and tear is about fatigue. No, it's not. Hopefully you paid attention there. But there is fatigue still in the game. They just kind of overhauled and reworked it a bit. So wear and tear, at short, is going to be basically about the physical impact, and then fatigue is going to be more about the conditioning of the players. I'm hoping that this sort of leads to like really good snap counts and player sort of realistic snap counts that you're going to find in the game. Music to a lot of people's ears when we're down at the EA studio was that X factors are not in the game. And I think a lot of us really don't like X factors from an execution standpoint. The idea is cool, but guaranteed boosts, guaranteed abilities just isn't really a thing we want. So instead, College Football 25 has about 80 different abilities, with the majority of them being brand new. You're not going to see the guaranteed boost you saw in Madden, Think of these as kind of situational boosts in the game. And those boosts are broken down into 2 categories, mental and physical. For physical and mental boosts, they're broken down into 4 categories. You have bronze, you have silver, you have gold, and you have platinum. No player in the game can have more than 5 physical and 3 mental abilities. So again, a maximum of 8 of those total abilities combined. So there's an ability in the game called the Option King, and it falls under the physical category. When it's bronze, you're going to get a slight accuracy increase on quick pitches. We'll talk about those in a second. Silver gives you a moderate accuracy increase on quick pitches, plus a speed increase on strong pitches. Talking about that in a second. Gold gives you significant accuracy and speed increases on all pitches, plus wear and tear protection on option plays. That is massive. And if you have it at platinum, it gives you the ultimate level of accuracy and speed increases, plus wear and tear protection. So as you can see, there are really nice situational boosts here for these. And then for mental ability, we can look at Field General, which is going to be something for quarterback archetypes. At bronze, you're going to be able to identify blitzers post-snap. If you have silver, you can identify them pre-snap. Gold will help you identify blitzers and coverage shells pre-snap. And then platinum will identify blitzers, coverage shells, and disguise coverages pre-snap. So again, you can kind of see where having these abilities at a higher tier is going to be fantastic for your players. Kind of hinted at it a little bit there, but your physical abilities for a player are determined by their archetype, and then their mental abilities are dictated solely by the position that they play. There are really great nuances you're going to find to abilities too. So the pocket shield ability for offensive linemen, this will be music to most of us and then frustrating for some of you guys. But how this works is it kind of progressively impacts the a lineman's ability to hold blocks on standard passing plays. So not a play action or something of that nature. The cool thing about that ability is that even at the highest tier, platinum, we're talking about platinum here, it won't apply if the distance to earn a first down is more than 10 yards. If you're like 3rd and 16, 4th and forever, that ability does not matter. There are also coach abilities too, and a lot of people are going to ask about those, but we'll talk about that in a future Dynasty video. For a lot of people, if you ask them about what's the difference between the NFL and college football, most of them are going to say the option game. And I'm not saying that's the only difference, but for a lot of people, that's what they say. I'm going to be honest, I am not looking forward to dealing with the option. I'm going to go up against some team running the triple option, and I'm going to cry. But something cool is they changed the controls for options. We kind of talked about it there in the previous section, but they make more sense now, in my opinion, and they've kind of added a few wrinkles that are going to help you both running the option and then also defending it. So how it works, you can quickly tap L1, LB to do a quick pitch. You can hold L1 or LB for a strong pitch, or you can actually fake it by double tapping. And I'm telling you, when you hit them with the fake and then you keep it moving, there is no better feeling. The quick pitch is kind of designed around needing to get rid of the ball in a hurry, but there's a trade-off of a higher chance that your running back is going to catch it, not in stride, and lose a little bit of that speed as they're trying to get to where they need to go. The strong pitch, as you can imagine, you have to hold the button, so it takes a little bit longer here. But the good news is when your guy catches it, the accuracy of the pitch, the speed your running back is able to take once they have the pitch is going to be more normal, and it helps them stay in stride and keep it moving. In like old college football games, you always had the issue of your quarterback running with that like really weird animation. Holding turbo is going to break out of that pretty much once you're past the line of scrimmage. So as long as you're doing that, you're good to go. But one thing that I really love, what I didn't even realize was a feature until I accidentally did it, is you can pitch out of tackle animations. You see it happen all the time in real life. You are going to try to get, or someone's trying to tackle you, or someone's trying to get tackled. They pitch it, the guy gets it, and they keep going. It's a great feeling. But keep in mind, you can also miss the pitch on any of these. Like, you are not guaranteed to have that ball go where it needs to go. It can keep it moving. Something I love as well is that you can hit the pitch option at any point and the ball will go flying. It doesn't mean it'll go to your team. It could go to the other team. But I'm glad they kept that as like, if you hit the option button, you need to be prepared that you have to do it in a smart situation. I talked about defense having some upgrades too to stop the option. Thank God, because it's really good in my opinion. But there's kind of some AI logic around the read and the pitch keys that help include sort of a read key animation. So EA said that their goal was basically for the defender to have more of realistic context when they're breaking down, going for either the pitch guy or the read guy, and trying to figure out if they should stay home or attack. What's really cool though is the defense actually has bluff animations for who they're going to go after. So they might bluff they're playing the QB or bluff they're going after the running back, and then switch the other way. And it is scary, so scary that maybe I pitched the ball on accident and the defense took it to the house, but it was still cool to watch. If you played Madden in recent years, they had it in NCAA Football 14 as well. There are coach adjustments for the read option, but they did more than just have option defense, conservative, aggressive. You're going to see one that is going to be dictating your read and one is dictating your pitch keys. You can kind of separately figure out how you want to defend those two different areas on the options. It's important to have skilled players on the field, on your squad, but you need more than that if you want to consistently win games in college football 25. I'm somebody that loves to go out there and just throw a freshman out there and say, buddy, you got the skills, let's go make something happen. That that is not going to be as easy now. Freshmen have like a much wider range of ups and downs that are going to basically happen throughout a game as compared to a senior that's been on your roster. The composure of a player is going to be driven completely by their player archetype as well. So let's say you have a scrambling quarterback on your roster. When you kind of find your rhythm with them, they'll earn improved ball security. And let's face it, when you got a scrambling QB and you got increased ball security, you know what that means. I'm running. If you have a QB with a field general archetype and you start finding the rhythm with them, dinking and dunking, get some nice passes across the board, you're going to see an increase of the throw accuracy. And I think what I love the most about this little system here is that you feel rewarded for making smart plays, good reads, getting rid of the ball, making the good throws, making the right play calls in general. It feels rewarding, which is what we want. We want to make the right play and then get rewarded for it. But at the same time, you throw a pick, you happen to fumble, your player's confidence might be shot. Like if it's a freshman, he might go completely cold. You've got to really work to get that back up. But that feeling of constructing a smart game plan and getting your player to go from being dead cold to getting hot again and having a nice hot streak and getting in rhythm, it just feels great. And in my opinion, mental abilities will be clutch with this system. It's also really cool that mental abilities can have an impact on a position group's composure in a game as well. So defensive backs can have an ability called Legion, which basically is going to boost the confidence of other defensive backs in the team when that player with that ability gets an interception. So you get an interception, your guys are riding a hot streak, your defensive back core is playing much better. But if that player who has the ability gets torched for a play, gets lit up, gets his ankles broken, something happens, he gets on a cold streak, that ability's effects go away completely right there. With a lot of the things that I've already covered in this video, you're really going to want to make Coach Vision your best friend. So it's been around for a long time in both Madden and the old school NCAA Football 14. But L2 or LT is going to be what you want to do to bring up pre-snap to get really the ability to access all the information you need. When you bring it up, you're going to be able to see your wear and tear, your composure, the confidence, abilities on both sides of the ball, which is going to be huge, I think. Matchups for particular players, your wide receiver DBs, how are they matching up? Is there a guy that just got put in the game because of wear and tear that has no business being on the field? DB go attack that guy at that point. And then still within that screen, adjustments to your defense. So you want to go hot routes or whatever when you're on offense. You want to, pinch your line, spread your linebacker, shade guys, whatever you want to do on defense. All that's still there. When you're playing on the road, Coach Vision becomes even more important in my opinion because it is no joke when there's home field advantage. I tried playing as JMU against Michigan and we played at Michigan. Not fun. Kind of quickly realized that I had no business being in that game. I could not move the ball. My dudes were getting torched. We were getting frustrated. The lines were going crazy all over the place. It was chaos. I tried to make hot routes. My guys weren't figuring it out. I tried to call audibles. They were showing me incorrect play art. And I thought this was a bug. And I went to the developers and they talked and showed me there will be incorrect play art if you're playing at a place like Michigan or a crazy place like LSU or wherever. You can call an audible. Your guys might think they have the right play call and you go to run the play and they're running something different. It blew my mind. It's such a cool feature, but you got to be on your toes. And kind of unlike the momentum feature in Madden 24, the home field advantage in College Football 25 is really only going to impact the away team. The screen shakes are way more intense than anything NCAA Football 14 had, in my opinion. How loud a stadium gets is wild. I mean, when you play at Texas versus JMU versus Ohio State versus Michigan versus Oregon versus whatever school you want to go run as, it feels different in certain states. Penn State? Are you kidding me? There's a clip that's went viral on social media talking about when we were at the studio, EA played a clip of the viral clip where Michigan was playing at Penn State. The Mo Bamba clip's going. They have Mo Bamba license in the game. And hearing like Penn State at full volume with their stadium pulse at max ability on like a third down and Mo Bamba's playing and there's like audio distortion and all this, man, it gave us chills. It was pretty wild. There's still old school features like hitting the right stick to get your crowd hyped up. And believe me, I was spamming that bad boy when I was playing at Penn State. The best advice I can ultimately give you is that when you're playing as an away team in one of these stadiums from like the toughest places to play and the stadium pulse is cranking, make the right play call at the play call screen. Don't get out there and try to get fancy until you've kind of calmed that crowd down some. At some point in all of our video game lives, we have just, maybe screamed at a digital player because they threw the ball with the worst touch or pass trajectory we've ever seen. And in my opinion, College Football 25 is going to put that praise or blame, potentially, allegedly, in your hands though, because they have a new revamped passing mechanic. I'm one of the people that thinks Madden 24's passing system is honestly pretty good. I don't know if the execution is perfect. Actually, it's not perfect, but I think if they change a few things, they can have something really good. And so when we get there and they're talking about a new passing mechanic in college football that's different from Madden 24, I'm skeptical because I'm like, I don't really know if this is it. But after spending about 4+ hours playing with this pass mechanic and trying to figure it out and really trying different quarterbacks like Carson Beck to Dylan Morris to Will Howard and using different quarterbacks across the board, I might like College Football 25's interpretation of passing better than Madden 24. The left stick is now going to give you a lot more control over sort of the pass leading, but I think the biggest change is how they're approaching throw power. For most of us, throw power in sports video games has always meant how far you can throw that ball. Your Uncle Rico, I can throw it over that mountain. But throw power in CFB 25 is about not just how far you can throw it, but how hard you can actually throw the football too. And when I played as JMU, I used Dylan Morris. No disrespect, Dylan. I'm sorry for this, throwing you out there like that. But the difference between Dylan Morris at JMU and Carson Beck at Georgia was wildly apparent. And when it comes to the actual meter, it kind of reminds me of NBA 2K24's like default shot meter with that sort of like arc that it has to it. So when you hold down the passing icon for whichever receiver you want to throw the football to, it'll start moving kind of like a blue meter for you. As long as it's blue, you're good. But towards the end of the meter, you're going to have a yellow area and a red area. The sizes of these areas are going to depend on a couple of things here. Your quarterback's throwing attributes, their abilities, distance of the throw, and then factors like, are they being pressured? Are they throwing off their back foot because they're crazy? Or you just are, a dude's right there, you got to get rid of it quickly. There's a variety of factors that kind of, factor in, like, are you throwing on the run? There are things that impact it. And if your pass is thrown in the blue, congrats. You're pretty much good to go as long as you didn't make a really dumb decision of who you're throwing it to and where. But if you land in the yellow, you've got a more inaccurate pass, and there's a little bit of a chance that's going to be involved there. And then the longer you're going to be in the red, the larger the penalty is to your throw. The red sections on that throwing meter are going to be dependent on a ton of different factors too, and not every QB's red area is going to be the same. If you have a QB with a weaker arm or lower thrower accuracy ratings, their red section is going to be larger. The best analogy I can kind of give you is like this is probably some of you are going to be like, what? But the vision cone we saw in Madden, right? You remember Peyton Manning might have like a crazy one that's super easy and it's like easy to make a throw with him. But then you have a guy like Mark Sanchez where you're like, oof, this might be a little bit more tough. I'm not saying this is like a similar feature to the vision cone, but I think this is a much better feature than the vision cone. And I think it's going to rival what Madden 24 had from a passing mechanic, which again, I think was pretty good. And a small note, you can pump fake, obviously, like you can in every football video game, but the pump fake actually brings up the meter. I don't know if that's going to show online if you're playing somebody, but if you're playing head-to-head couch co-op against somebody, pump faking and having that meter pop up will make somebody just be like, oh, and then go. And the CPU does get faked out by it. If there's a feature that I think will go under the radar for a lot of people, it is a switch stick. But please, 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 if you fancy yourself a high-level player or somebody who has aspirations to be a much better player in Madden, the switch stick is going to be your friend. And if you've watched my Madden live streams or NCAA Football 14 live streams on Twitch, you know that I get frustrated by yelling all the time, I didn't want to switch to that player. Let me switch to the player I want. This kind of feels like it's the answer to that. When the devs kind of told me about this feature, I'm gonna be honest, I kind of shook it off. I was like, I don't know, that doesn't sound like my cup of tea. But when I actually figured it out and used it and kind of saw where it applied, it was really cool. One of the first times I used it, I got a user interception. I was usering a linebacker, covering a drag, and then the CPU, I saw the animation start popping or getting ready to pop up. I flicked the right stick to pull the CB or the safety to cover the middle post they were trying to throw. I jumped it, got the user pick, and went to the house. And it was kind of a euphoric moment where you're like, I see the vision of why this feature makes sense. You can bait people really easily with it, being able to switch and just pay attention to what your defense is doing in the coverage. You can do so many things. Jumping out routes, I was able to, flip off a linebacker, get to an out route guy, and make a quicker adjustment. It saves you like a little bit of time that you normally would have with using the B button and the left stick to switch. You just flick that stick and you're already in control. You've got your guy there. You can make some jumps that you wouldn't have made in previous years. And if you're somebody that loves to use the defensive line, you can still do sort of the left stick plus B to switch positions or switch, directions of the actual player. So that way you can still do your pass mechanics when you're on the defensive line. When I was kind of figuring out the controls and exploring some things early on in the game, one thing I noticed is something called turbo instead of a no huddle tempo. We've had no huddle in football games for years, but turbo basically lets you get to the line super quick, but at the trade-off that you can audible and you can hot route. And really, you could just sit there for as long as you want, but if you can hike the football, as soon as you get to the line, you can kind of catch the defense off a little bit. I am a little worried about this feature because I feel like in head-to-head games, it's going to be interesting to see if people abuse it, people that love to run the same play or variations of the same play. I feel like there could be some weird stuff going on here, but again, let's see what happens when people have the game in their hands. It was cool to see certain teams play with a faster style. Oklahoma keeps sort of an up-tempo. Michigan, obviously a little bit slower pace, ground and pound a lot of their stuff. But if they're losing late in the game, you're going to kind of see them adjust a little bit and try to speed things up a little bit. Use that no huddle tempo to kind of keep things going for their offense. And if you watched my first video on College Football 25 a couple of days ago, I talked about there being those giant, bizarre play cards that IRL college teams use on the sidelines. When you call an audible in this game, you will see your guys look over to the sideline to try to see what the coaches are saying, like mimicking that sort of thing they do IRL. and then go back to the line sort of looking. So it's really cool. It's a small like little thing where you see him look over, kind of like get the play call and then come back. And I love that. And speaking of something that I love for a long time now, rain and snow has just been like a visual aesthetic in our football games. They haven't really mattered much. They haven't really done anything. And when you play in rain or snow, you're like, I mean, it looks cool, but that's all about it. They're changing that, in my opinion, with College Football 25 and kind of getting back to the old thing we used to have, probably in like, I think Madden 09 might have had it, if I remember correctly, but weather is going to impact what your players are able to do and how they play. So if it's raining or snowing, you're going to notice that it's more difficult to plan and cut with your guys. Passing game is also going to get impacted here. So you might see more lame ducks, more wobbly passes come out as a result of the rain or pass. Passing accuracy being more impacted, and even throw power not quite being the same in those conditions. Fumbles will be increased in inclement weather games, which is fantastic, and drop passes as well, but you can still use like the R1, RB mechanic of doing the cover ball feature, but that will help combat some of the issues, but it won't always be the result, as weather's still going to impact the defense too. They might go for a wrap-up tackle or a dive tackle, and that might be a little bit more challenging for some of the players with a lower tackle rating. But special teams is where you should get scared. We'll talk about the new kick meter in just a second, which is a great addition. But your kick power, your kick accuracy are all going to be impacted on punts and kicks. Even the trajectory of the ball in rain and snow will be impacted by that heavy stuff. So you got to keep your head in a swivel. The new kick meter is probably what I wanted to hug a developer over the most. Well, maybe wear and tear. Kick meter might have been second for me. I was like dumb excited about this. And some of you might be saying, well, it's not that big of a deal. Kicks are way too easy. When we watch football on Saturdays and Sundays, or Thursdays if you subject yourself to prime football, the kicking is like never that simple. Guys are missing kicks left and right. Dudes that we thought were great kickers are getting fired like mid-season. They're bringing on some other dude that we've never heard of that then becomes great. Like, kicking has just been such a weird thing that there's no exact science to it. So the new meter basically has a horizontal bar that reminds me of kind of like the old NBA Live free throw routines you would have, where the ball or the football is going side to side on that meter. It kind of goes red to orange to yellow and then to green in the very center of that meter. And your goal is to stop the football in the middle of that meter in the green. You're doing that by holding A or X, depending on what console you're playing on. And then there's sort of an arrow at the top that you've been able to move around prior to that to, change the trajectory of the ball, the pitch or the yaw kind of where you're kicking the football. And you're holding down A or X still, and that fills up a power meter on that kick. You can overfill that meter and bounce back and go for an underkick. You can fill that meter into this tiny little red triangle at the very top of that arrow. And if you do that, you overkick. An overkick might sound good because you're getting more distance, but you will have a wildly different pattern of where that football could go. It could be down the middle and be fine where you ultimately wanted to kick it. It could go Buffalo Bills and go wide right or go wide left. Like, a lot of different things can happen with it there. And then the speed of the moving ball in the kick meter is going to be determined on your kicker's accuracy ratings along with the distance of the kick. To me, again, in the 4+ hours that I played, I probably kicked like 10 to 15 field goals during that time. Kicks that were like 35 to 40 yards and closer weren't that difficult in my opinion. I made probably 85-90% of those. But kicks that are longer than 40, buddy, I was struggling on some of those. I feel like I was threading my kicker scholarship nonstop. There is so much that I covered, and I think the wild thing is I didn't even touch on everything. A couple of extra things here. There's a really cool celebration menu you can access in the pause menu of an actual game that lets you pick the exact celebration you want to do. It sounds small, but it's so cool in my opinion. It kind of reminds me of like playing Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter back in the day and looking for like a combo list or a special moves list. But the combos are way easier to do. Basically, for some of them, I was holding like right bumper and tapping left or right on the analog stick. It's similar to kind of EA Sports FC's celebrations they have. Maybe you're blowing out a team and you don't really feel like kneeling the ball or running halfback dive 4 to 5 times just to sort of end the game and, put them out of there. If the opposing team is completely out of timeouts and you sort of, got in the victory formation and the other team is mathematically eliminated at this point, they will simulate the following kneel downs and get you to the end of the game. It's a nice quality of life feature. The juking system is also revamped as well. Now listen, I personally love that little cheap juke that a lot of us were doing in Madden 24 where you're kind of sweeping right or sweeping left and breaking ankles and the CPU doesn't know what to do or the user doesn't know what to do. That is gone. The combos you pull off in this game take a little bit more practice. I think for a lot of people, spend 15, 20, 25 minutes in practice mode, just sort of going through, hopping, something just to, figure things out a little bit against a smaller, like 1-star school. You will figure it out and you can chain some really nice combos together. I really like it. I think it's an underrated part of the thing. And it's one of those things that's probably better shown than actually sort of just talked about in my opinion. But if you put the effort in to sort of master this, and again, 15, 20, 25 minutes maximum, you can absolutely dominate and do some really cool things. But at the same time, I get where people might be frustrated because they're so used to the juking system in Madden 24. It's an adjustment, but I think for the long run, it's going to be better and give a better skill gap. Of all the things I've talked about, I think it's just really apparent that, like all sports games, it comes down to execution. What I played was not a perfect football game, but I'm gonna be honest, I am still thinking about it to this day. I have FOMO. Call me Casey and JoJo because I'm going crazy, just thinking about this football game every single day. I've got more videos coming soon on College Football 25, so if you haven't subscribed already, definitely go ahead and make sure you do so. And leave me a comment down below with the question you want to answer that I wasn't able to answer today. We're talking strictly gameplay in today's video, but I got way more coming for you soon. Be safe, be smart, tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys on the next one.